EA Interviews, episode 33.
Inspiration, transformation, success stories, and the Imperfect Action Round. 7 days a week. Join Mario Ficini for today's Expert Authority Effect interview.
Welcome, Expert Authority World. Have you ever wanted to increase your profit? Have you ever wanted to make more money in your business? Have you ever wanted to serve your clients and you get a bunch of revenue, but are you necessarily getting the profit? Do you want to increase your profit, but not necessarily your workload? I'm excited to have none other than Nobby Kleinman here, CEO of Money Rules and international best-selling author. He's going to be sharing with you tips on business success and profiting with your finances right after we thank our sponsor. Congratulations, you got started with your cell phone, and I welcome you to the live streaming game. Now you're comfortable on camera and going live regularly, but I caution you, don't get stuck in startup mode. This is why I stepped up my game with Wirecast Pro and advise you do too. Get your 30-day free trial at eainterviews.com/Wirecast. Here he is, everyone, Nobby Kleinman. Nobby, are you excited to shine?
Hey, Mario. Absolutely. Every day it's an opportunity. So I'm pleased to be here. Thanks for having me.
Excellent, Nobby. So why money and why Money Rules? What was your inspiration for starting your company?
Money Rules came about after I left financial planning. I was a financial planner for 20 years. And during that time, I was always being asked one question by women more than anybody else, and always the same question. But after 20 years, I'd had enough of the financial planning industry and decided to get out. So that was 2006. And I took a couple of years off to travel around Australia in a four-wheel drive and also do some landscaping and renovation at home. And one day, a switch went off in my head and it said, "You're bored." So I knew I wanted to get back into helping people with managing money. And it was that one question from women that came back into my mind. So in 1994, I had started looking around at budget programs because the question that women kept asking me all the time was, I don't want to know about financial planning, insurance, or investment advice. I just want to know, how do I manage my daily money? Because even back then, they were having trouble with coping with the incomes. There's the usual story. Couples get married, the wife gets pregnant, she stops working. They have their first child. By the time she's ready to go back to work, they're having their second child. So now she's stuck at home looking after the family, and they're living on one income. The cost of living goes up, and wages haven't increased over the last, 5 to 10 years in reality. So the struggle becomes coping with all of that, and generally there's more children come along. So I couldn't find a program that could actually help people. They were always budgets, and budgets are not, user-friendly, and they conjure up this thing in the mind that just says restriction, and that's the end of life. Life is over. Women used to say to me, if that's all I'm going to have on a Friday night, I'm not giving up my glass of wine for a budget. I'd rather not know and stick my head in the sand. So I had to find a better way, and quite often, like most people, I do my thinking when I'm washing the car or cutting the grass or I'm in the shower or whatever. And the idea actually came to me in the shower, and I got out, I wrote down my idea, and it took me about 2 weeks to put it all together, sent it off overseas, and the program came back, and basically that was about 3 months in total. And fine-tuned it and haven't really changed it a lot since. But that was basically how Money Rules came about.
Well, I love that story, and you and I are similar because I have all kinds of good ideas in the shower. Have you ever heard of Aqua Notes?
No.
You can they're waterproof notes. You can literally write them down, and their tagline is "No more good ideas down the drain."
All right. Nice.
So that is an inspiring story. So let's go a little bit deeper with who you help and how you help them. You mentioned, women. Are they strictly your demographic, or do you help both men and women, and how do you do that?
Okay, so the main demographic, the one person that I was concentrating on was generally a 42-year-old woman, recently divorced, 2 teenage children, and looking back on her life and saying, well, I've got nothing from that, and I'm 42. I've got about 18 years until I get to retirement. What am I going to do? I've got to start getting some money together, and I've got to look after these 2 kids, and basically I'm homeless because there's nothing that's come out of the relationship. Everything's been lost. So that was the original target. But the reality is the program itself suits everybody. I mean, when it came to the book that I wrote, which is Money Rules, Want More Money, Honey, that was designed for the 42-year-old woman. But the program itself, as I say, evolved predominantly for people who are probably in their 30s through to their 55s. It will work for older people as well. But that's the main demographic. It's helping them cope with managing their money. They're in deep trouble.
Well, I was smiling because I know so many companies that don't know who they're talking to, and you nailed it right off the bat. It's unfortunate with the circumstances. So for anyone wondering why I was smiling, it wasn't because of the situation or the people. I mean, I'd never wish that upon anyone, but when you said it's a 42-year-old woman, she's recently divorced, she's planning for a future, she has 18 years, it's honestly, I knew you knew your stuff to that level of a degree, and it's why I invited you on the show, because I know you know what you're talking about. So that's awesome you have it that narrowed down. So let's talk about the people you have helped with your training. What has been the biggest transformation you've seen? You know, maybe it's one of these women that was recently divorced, found out about you. What was the transformation you were able to take them through, and where did they end up after your help?
Okay, well, so like I say, it generally will help anybody. This program is, it will work across the board for everybody. It's repeatable. And so the first lady that I actually got started with was, she was probably in her late 30s at the time, and actually mid-30s at the time. And she was going through a terrible time with her husband. I found her on Facebook at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I said, "What are you doing up?" And she said, "Oh, look, I'm really worried. We recently bought a car, and I've just realised it's going to kill our budget. And I just can't sleep, and I'm so worried about how we're going to cope." And they just had their second baby. So, you know, the story just keeps rolling on. And so I said, "Look, don't worry. I'll come over on Friday. We'll go through it, and I'm sure it's not as bad as it looks." So we got there. I went through the program with her. She put everything in. Within 2 weeks, she wrote back to me. She sent a testimonial. It was about this long in Facebook about everything that had changed in her life within 2 weeks, and how she'd saved basically somewhere around about $4,000 in fees and charges on insurance and registration and different things that she hadn't even considered prior to having the program. So what we did was we confronted her exact reality at that point in time, and we put all of the information into the program as it was. And we then said, okay, what can we change? So we're not saying you've got to restrict yourself. It's changing how they're doing things. So it's modification, and that's all it comes down to. It's not you must do this to survive. It's like, what can you do to change the outcome? Within 2 weeks, she'd made all of these changes, didn't realise that if she didn't ask, she wouldn't get. And now that she'd asked, she was more than happy to keep asking and getting. So we turned that around. She said, "Look, we now realise we can afford the car." Her husband quit smoking. He came on board. That was one of the hard things, was getting her husband on board. He'd actually just got a raise at work, a promotion, and he was gone up to about $65,000. Now that's, to a lot of people, that's a lot of money, but they were still having this hard time affording things, which was just crazy. You can't. What is it? You can't. I can't think of the word now. If you don't measure it, you can't know what you've got, right? So once they knew what their figures were, they were much better off. And it was just this whole relief to see this thing in front of her that said, you actually don't have that big a problem if you make these changes in your life. So we cut back on her expenses like hairdos or getting her fingernails done, or he cut back his smoking. He quit smoking. He wanted to quit smoking, so this was the incentive for him. he was drinking 2 slabs of beer a week, which was absolutely crazy. So he cut that in half to 1 slab a week. So big financial changes. So that was the first one. And, of course, she was extremely excited and will talk to anybody. And she says, it's gone beyond their daily living. Now they've got their future planned. And another one was a woman that we saved $2 million. She'd bought 10 properties for her retirement. And she was in a high-flying 6-figure income and had been terminated just after the GFC in 2008. 2011 when she came along, and she said, we don't have that 6-figure income anymore, and we've got these 10 properties to support. What am I going to do? And I said, well, put all of your information into the program. We found that she was actually $80 a week short. I said, can you find $80 a week? And she said, well, yeah, look, I love teaching piano to children. And so she came back 2 weeks later, and she said, I've got the money because I've got children that I'm teaching piano to. When we looked at the whole scheme of everything, they were going to save $2 million in interest if they followed the program all the way through on these 10 properties, and they were going to save something like 10 years. It works. It's following a system and following a program. It doesn't matter what you do, follow something that works.
All right, Nobby, thanks for sharing both of those transformational stories. And what I like about them is you're not just able to help people with the finances, you're also helping them personally. You're bringing that family together again, helping him stop smoking, and that's great on a family level. And it sounds like 2 different demographics because you also have the success story of someone in the millions. I remember hearing long ago that it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep. Because you can make $2 million a year, but if you spend 2.5, you got a problem. Conversely, if you make $100,000 a year and you keep 95 of it, you're doing something right. So you were talking about your training and your book. So let's touch into your Money Rules book, and I see it on the shelf behind you, along with your other one, Rich Girl, Smart Girl. But how have your books helped your business?
The books came along as a secondary thing. Somebody said to me, you've got a business, the only way that you're going to get known is to write a book. And writing the first one was a bit of a hard slog. And the next one just came so easily. But what it does is it does position me as an authority. It's like I've got a book that I can hold up and people are going to say, wow, you're an author. Author comes into authority. Therefore, you've put all your knowledge into the book, and I can read that. And they can read that in their own time without me talking to them, and therefore thinking that I'm trying to sell them something. It's like, I'll read your book. If I like what I see, I'll come back to you. So there's no pressure. But the fact that the book has been done is obviously an important thing. The next book that came along, which was this one here, Rich Girl, Poor Girl, was because a lady had read the first book and she said, I love that so much. We're writing a compilation book. I would love for you to put a chapter in there. So in my trips back and forth to the States from Australia, I started writing this book. And it was over 6 flights that I actually ended up writing it and put it together. And it started off as a fairy tale, and that's, I suppose, and that's why it's sort of animated. Cartoony, but we then turned it into an animation video that goes for half an hour. So it's me just reading the book, and it's that half-hour video. People who've seen the video or read the book have said, "My daughter needs to watch that." It's based around women and how they face the challenges of life. Like we spoke before, growing up, it's about 2 girls growing up together. One's rich, one's poor. And the global financial crisis hits, so everybody comes back to a level playing field, and they just go through life, get married, have children. One ends up getting divorced. They all have money problems, and along comes a solution, and as a bit of a secret, they love baking cakes. And so it turns into a business, and they basically live happily ever after. But, that's the basis of the book. But it's also the basis of life. That is what is happening to the families that are out there. So it's not that far from the truth for people who read it. It's a half-hour read. It's a half-hour video. So, not hard to do. But, again, that also provides authority that people say, well, you are genuine. I can align my thinking with what you've put in print or in video. So you need to be believed. People need to have this thing of trust with you. And you break down the barriers by being able to give them something that says, take my word for it, but, here, read it for yourself. Once you're comfortable, come back.
So it sounds like next to publishing, you're saying that video is a good thing for a business too?
People will absorb things that they can see in a video. You can show them a picture, and a picture certainly will have an impact. But video, just like this is doing now, you'll see my expressions, you'll see my passion come through. And that happens in a video with people. And they'll say, the guy is genuine, about what he does. Or, do you know what? I don't like his style. So they'll pick up on it either way. And you know what? I'm not fussed either way. I'm here to help people. But the true hero is always going to be the person I'm working with. It's their journey, and I'm just a guide to show them how to get to the other end in one piece.
I love what you represent and stand for, and I've always known that about you, and I think it's great that you have that experience, like you said, 20 years in financial planning, but why did you want to parlay that and create a training and not just keep doing it one-on-one?
There's a lot of people in the world who are in financial difficulty. The reality is it's more than 75% of the population, it's probably 80% of the population who are living paycheck to paycheck. I can't do that one-on-one. I'm looking to work with financial advisors and money coaches and things like that, people like that who can actually then go off and spread out and talk to their tribes. I'm just a guide. I'm not the person to do this for everyone. I'm happy to help others get started and help more people and just let that ripple effect work out there. I'm not the important person. It's the tool, and if I can give people that tool and show them how to use it, then they can show so many more.
That is great because you want to make an impact around the world, and I know you are, and it's always great to see you when you're in the States, but I'm glad you're representing down under there. So we're going to go to thank our sponsor, and we're going to come back for the Imperfect Action Round. Instead of trying to get your prospects' attention, why not be so captivating they can't look away? That's a quote from my book, Video Marketing for Business Owners, that I created as a reminder for both my clients and myself for success on camera, and that's why I use Wirecast Pro for my professional productions, and I advise you do as well. Get your 30-day free trial today at eainterviews.com/Wirecast and start filming your show professionally the way your brand and audience deserves. Once again, that's eainterviews.com/Wirecast. It's time to take imperfect action, Nobby. Are you ready to take imperfect action?
Let's roll with it.
All right. What's the number one problem you see your audience make, and how can they fix it?
Spending money they can't afford to. Quite often, one of the things that shows up is it a want or is it a need? People buy emotionally instead of logically. So if they're in the dumps or something like that, and especially, life is hard enough, and if you don't have a lot of money, it's those little treats that you really like. I want to go to the movies, and you should be able to do that. But can you afford to do that? So they'll put it on the credit card. It's like, just loading another bullet into the chamber. And the reality is it's people who've got these credit card debts, and most people do, they're handcuffs. The bank loves it. Take more credit, spend more money, and they're just tying them up forever. Banks are not your friends. Do not ever think that a bank is your friend. In life, people will either pay interest or they will earn interest, and most people are paying interest. It's a tax on their income. not only do they pay tax to the government for the money that they've earned through all that working, now they're paying a further tax on borrowing. And that's money that's gone out the window. They'll never get back. It's wasted interest and lost years, because the interest they save is actually for their future. And as much as I don't want to push it, that's what Money Rules shows them how to do, how to pay off their debts in the shortest possible period of time and save all of that interest, as well as save all of those years, and then put that money to work for their future.
That is fantastic. I'm so glad you're sharing that, and that's the goal of your program and your book, and there will definitely be the links in the show notes here, but I'm so glad you're doing this, because there are so many people, and you got me thinking of when I was in high school, and oh, here's a credit card, here's this, here's that, and unless you run the numbers, you don't really know what's going on with that. So thank you for bringing that up. So now we're going to go to the opposite side of that. So that's the biggest problem your audience has. That's how they can fix it. What's the shortest path to the cash?
Shortest path to the cash is a lot of people think that they have a debt problem. They don't have a debt problem. They have a cash shortage problem, right? So it's spend less than you earn and pay the highest interest debt. That's the fastest action you can ever take. And that was the answer that I always used to give to women when they'd say, I don't want to know about everything else. Just show me how to, manage my money. That was it. Spend less than you earn, pay the highest interest debt first. And everyone will tell you that. But the reality is that this is where they look at me and they say, yes, but how? And I realized they wanted the push-button solution, and that was how the Money Rules program came about. But even once that happens, one of the things that you'll find in this is the solution to actually then going out and generating cash. Even the Money Rules program in itself is a cash generator, because the way that I've got it set up, it has an inbuilt affiliate program. You buy your program, but if you want to get it for nothing, share it with 4 other people and you'll get your money back, right? So it's generating more income. That's not a hard thing to do. If you know 4 other people, and we are generally the people that we hang around with, we're all in that same boat. So if you're working with or you're spending time with mothers at school, tennis clubs or sports groups or anything like that, all of those people are generally in the same sort of financial area, and they're all sort of struggling, but nobody wants to say anything. If you turn around and say, look, guess what? I've got this, and this is brilliant. It's just made it so clear for me, and the stress is gone from my life, then wouldn't you share that with other people?
Of course you'd want to. I don't know why people would have a problem. Obviously people don't want to admit stuff, but I think that just perpetuates the problem instead of going, you know what, here's what I did. Honestly, it's one of the reasons that inspired me to do the show, is to go, hey, I know these great people such as yourself. I want to showcase them because we've had one-on-one exchanges and hung out in person. And I'm like, man, it's like everyone is so awesome one-on-one, but then it's like everyone goes to their corner of the earth and no one knows what you're doing behind closed doors. And, with my coaching and my training, I've had the opportunity to see behind the closed doors. And I'm like, so that's why I wanted to showcase this, because I know you can help 10,000, 100,000 people, as well you should. So I'm going to do everything I can to get your stuff out there to make an impact for people. So thank you for making it available.
Thank you.
I have a third question. It's awesome. The third one is customer lifetime value. How do you maximize the customer lifetime value, specifically with your business in this instance?
Well, for me, that's a hard one. But customer lifetime value is in the result.
That's easy.
Yeah, it is. It's in the result. If you show them, and I can show them within minutes, right? Nothing else matters other than knowing what the future is going to be from a financial perspective if they follow the program. And I can show them that within absolutely minutes. The first one we're going to show them is the worst scenario, which is if they keep doing what they're currently doing, this is what life is going to look like. And it ain't a very good picture. So now we can work together and make changes so that I can absolutely turn your life around. I could probably show you how you can have $1 million at the end of the same period of time of, say, 25 or 30 years when you're paying that mortgage off, instead of giving all that money to the bank. So if you can show them how to pay off their debts in less than half the time and keep all of that interest, a $300,000 mortgage, you're probably going to pay $250,000 in interest over the next 25 years. What if you could cut that down to, say, $100,000? You've just saved $150,000, and that now goes to your retirement, and you're debt free in half the time. And no fakeness about it. This is the program. Everything is in the program. It is simple. It was designed for women. Now, it is so simple for women to use, right? Guys have looked at it and said, this is a no-brainer. But women look at it and they say, I can understand that. There is no more confusion, because if you, if somebody I've heard say, if you confuse, you lose. This is so simple that women look at it and they say, I get it. I totally get it. I now have control. I don't need to rely on a guy, because, in all honesty, a man is not a plan, okay? There is no white shining knight. So women can take that control for themselves and say, yes, I do that. Most of my clients are women. So it's not a hard thing. But when they sit there with their husband, it's like, this is it. We are doing this because I'm in control. The President of the United States can boss around the whole country, but when he goes home, his wife says, and he'll do it. The biggest corporations, the same thing. The guy goes home to his wife, and his wife is in charge of that household.
I appreciate you for what you've shared already, Nobby, and I'm glad you've made this information available. Where can people get more information on your training and your books?
They could actually go to moneyrules.com.au and check out the website. But I've got a special for your listeners, if you like, where I actually show people for nothing up front what their future is going to look like. And to do that, all they need to go is to moneyrules.com.au/DFY. So done for you, but just the letters DFY. And what they'll find there is the program that they can just put information into, and we'll send them back a report.
Very good. Well, I appreciate you for making that available to Expert Authority World, and I'll make sure that the link is in there in the show notes. I just have one more question for you. What book would you recommend that has made an impact on your life and business?
One of the best books that I think I've ever read in business, this guy, it must have been like he was looking over my shoulder, and it's Michael Gerber in The E-Myth. Brilliant book.
Great recommendation. Well, Nobby, thank you so much for the insight and, again, for making this available, because I know the world needs it and you're increasing the financial literacy. So thank you, and it's been great having you on the show.
Thanks very much for having me, Mario.
All right, Expert Authority World, we got another great one here. We'll see you on the next episode. Take care, and God bless. You're already successful. You've worked hard to get where you are. We both know it wasn't overnight and hasn't always been easy. No doubt you're the expert on your subject matter. But do your prospects in your marketplace think of you first as their go-to trusted advisor all the time? ExpertAuthorityChecklist.com is 100% free and reveals the 21 steps to determine if your prospects view you as the expert and authority of your marketplace, or if it's just all in your mind. Important required steps like, do you have a process in place for prospects to self-identify if they qualify for your time and expertise or not? Does your current offer have the 7 components of an irresistible offer required to make it a no-brainer for your prospects? Do you have a real-life paperback book showcasing you as the subject matter expert you can actually hand someone? Get your free checklist now at expertauthoritychecklist.com. Once again, Expert Authority Checklist, to make sure you have the 21 steps covered. It better not be more, but don't leave those one or two things you may have missing go any longer. Visit expertauthoritychecklist.com and make sure you're being seen as the expert in authority today. Once again, that's expertauthoritychecklist.com. Get your copy now. Congratulations, you got started with your cell phone, and I welcome you to the live streaming game. Now you're comfortable on camera and going live regularly, but I caution you, don't get stuck in startup mode. This is why I stepped up my game with Wirecast Pro and advise you do too. Get your 30-day free trial at eainterviews.com/Wirecast. Thanks for listening to the episode. I hope you got a lot of value out of it. Let's continue the conversation over in the community, expertauthorityworld.com. We can have discussions, talk about the episodes, and I'd love to get your thoughts on it. Once again, expertauthorityworld.com.